channel. My name is Jana, and if you're new around here, I teach elementary music. Today in this video, we are talking all about something that can in some ways be controversial in the teaching community, and that is spending money in your classroom and ways that you can save money in your classroom. Now, I want to start with a bit of a disclaimer. It is okay to spend money in your classroom. I know that I've seen things on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube where it's almost like teachers shaming teachers about spending money in your classroom. Yeah, it would be great if we had everything provided to us from our districts and our divisions, but sometimes that's not possible. On the flip side of that, it is also okay to spend no money in your classroom. You can still be an effective teacher and not spend hundreds of dollars in your classroom. So whichever side of the fence you stand on, know that it is completely okay. You are normal. And you will be a good teacher despite the money you put in or you don't put in. So now that that's out of the way, let's get on to my 5 money saving tips for anyone, but specifically first year teachers. So I have just came out of my first full year of teaching elementary music. And some of these tips I did follow. And some of them I likely should have followed. So it's kind of a reflection on how I've spent my money in my classroom this year. And so I hope that you can take what I have done and learned and apply it to your classroom and situation. So tip number 1, make sure that before you go and spend a whole pile of money in your classroom, that you check out your classroom to see what is actually in there. So if you haven't checked out your classroom by now, keep watching this video, but come back to it after you have checked out your classroom and you know what's in there. Sometimes there will be things, you'll be pleasantly surprised with what is in your classroom, and there will be things that you didn't think would be there that will be there, so you don't have to buy them. Other times you may be disappointed and there might be things that you think should be there and that are essential for you to do your job that are not there, and that you likely think you need to buy before you buy some of the fun stuff. For instance, in my classroom, when I went in, I noticed that there was a great selection of instruments, egg shakers, rhythm sticks, all of that kind of stuff was in my classroom. There was also a great selection of resource manuals and like teaching books and things like that. However, I went into my classroom and there were no things to enhance my lessons with. There's nothing like puppets, books, bulletin board sets. Like there was none of that in my classroom when I got there, which was fine. But since I knew that, I was able to put any money that I wanted to spend in my classroom into those areas. Whereas I could have gone into another classroom and I could have had 1 broken pair of rhythm sticks, an egg shaker, and a tambourine. And if I had walked into that classroom, I would have likely chose to put any money that I had to spend into my classroom into getting some instruments so that I could do my job effectively. Tip number 2 is that since you are now a teacher, dollar stores are officially your best friend. I love dollar stores because I can often find things that I need for a cheaper price that are still good quality. Things like my supply caddies that I have all of my students' supplies in that they just take with them. I got those all at Dollar Tree. Granted, I'm not a classroom teacher, so I don't have kids using them every day, but for what I need them for and how I use them, the ones at Dollar Tree were absolutely fine. My centers bins, I got all from Dollar Tree. They're sturdy. The kids, they hold all this stuff. Perfect for what I need them for. So I bought those for $1.25 rather than going to Walmart and buying something for $5. My hand-in bin, simple, just basket from Dollar Tree. I buy both a lot of my classroom organization stuff from dollar stores as well as manipulatives. Sometimes my manipulatives aren't always exactly what I have in mind, but they're usually good enough to justify spending $1.25 on manipulatives as opposed to $16 to buy them off of Amazon. Things like that. So those are the main things that I shop for at dollar stores for: organization, manipulatives, and also stickers. I give my kids lots of stickers and I get all those from Dollar Tree. Tip number 3 is anything that you buy, try to buy it with a plan of how you're going to use it in mind. So For instance, when I went and started to collect puppets and things like that for my classroom, I started buying ones that I already had a lesson idea for. So one of the first ones I bought was my owl puppet that I use for at the beginning of the year for our song Who Is Here and owl vocal explorations. I had that lesson all in mind anyways to begin with, so then I found a puppet to go with it. Same with the books. I knew at the beginning of the year, my kindergarten students, I wanted to work on them with letters and letter songs. So I got lots of letter books to go with those. Have I always followed this rule? Definitely not. Especially when it comes to books, and even a little bit when it comes to puppets. I have bought things and then created a lesson to go with them. But for the most part, I do try to buy with a plan, so that I'm not wasting my money on things that I don't really know what I'm going to do with, but it looks cool, so I'm going to buy it. I'm kind of guilty of that, but I really, really try, and I encourage you to try to buy with a plan. All right, number 4 tip is know that you don't need everything for your classroom when you start on day 1. Some of the classrooms that you've likely been looking at on Pinterest or Instagram or YouTube or anything like that, some of those classrooms are built from teachers who have been teaching for 3 years or 5 years or 8 years or 25 years. And they've had time to collect things and refine their approach and refine how they want their classroom to look. I can pretty much almost guarantee that you will not have all of the answers when you start your first job. And that includes how you want your classroom to be set up. So even though you might want all those fancy things in your classroom, A, you might not be able to afford them, and B, you might change your mind once you see what works for you and your students. An example of this was I had bought like a stacking paper tray to put all of my student work in. And that's what I did like when I started in January. And then come about this November, I had so much student work all over the place that I went and bought Duotangs. Okay, that's fine. I'll just leave the Duotangs in the paper sorter. Well, then the Duotangs got too full that then I went and was able to get magazine holders. And that's what I decided to do. Now, some of that craziness of spending money comes from me not knowing what I want and me seeing what worked for someone else on Instagram and be like, oh, that'll work for me. Not realizing that that person might just be a classroom teacher and I'm teaching music and I have 12 classes. So there's a whole bunch of different things and different factors that will change your circumstances and how you need to set up your classroom and what you need to buy compared to people on Instagram. So buy with a plan, which we've already talked about, but know that you don't need everything right from day 1. All right, and then the next one is one that I didn't start doing right at the beginning of my teaching career, but I have gotten better at it even in this first year teaching, and that's setting boundaries with what you want to spend in your classroom. So for instance, going into my second year, I know that I will not buy instruments for my music classroom. Instruments are something that I need to do my job. They are something that is essential to me as a music teacher. I will gladly write grants if I need new instruments, but I will not spend my money to buy instruments for my classroom. Mainly because I need them to do my job, but they also do get damaged and they do get beat up and they just get worn out in a classroom setting. The other thing that I did not do this year, but I will be doing moving forward, is I will not buy things that will be consumed in my classroom, such as pencils, markers, erasers. I bought all that stuff this year because I didn't have any of it and I needed it for how I wanted to do my classroom. I wanted to do lots of composition. I wanted to do lots of listening and reflecting, and I didn't have any of that stuff. But now going forward, I do have a small classroom budget, and that's what I will be spending the money that the school gives me on. Pencils, erasers, markers, and Duotangs for future students. This year I bought Duotangs for the kids that I had, because those are things that the kids consume. They're not something that can be used year to year. My markers that I bought in September, pretty much all of them are garbage or pretty well dried up. That's something that I will not spend money on in my classroom. Things that I will spend money on are things that I would either take with me to another school, storage solutions, or things that enhance my lessons, such as books. I buy all my own books because I'm creating my lessons, and if I ever have to or choose to move schools, I want to take them with me. Same goes for puppets. I have puppets that go with certain lessons and certain activities, so if I have to go to a different school, I want to take those with me. Things that enhance my lessons are things like manipulatives. I purchase all of my manipulatives for rhythm, things that I use for students to put notes on the staff. I purchase all of that. And all of those things collectively all enhance my lessons, and there are things that I would want to take with me if I ever left. Am I going to take 18 glockenspiels with me? No, because I might not even be teaching music, or I might be teaching music in a different capacity. So that's kind of where I set my boundaries and my budget even with that. And just on the thought of budget, it might be useful, especially in the beginning, if you give yourself a certain amount that you are willing to spend on your classroom each month. This is not something I did, and I'm hoping to do, I need to do, when I start my second year of teaching. If you say that I'm going to put $50 into my classroom every month, then that's where you cap it at, and that's all the money that you spend of your own money. And it doesn't need to be $50. It can be $10. It can be $5. And just doing that. My thought for this going into my next year is I'm just going to have a little classroom account in one of my other savings accounts that is just going to be for money if I need to buy something for my classroom. And I'm hoping that will help me spend less money in my classroom, because when I think about what I spent last year, it's a little scary, but it's okay. I am now in my second year, and I have lots of that stuff that I should need. And right now I can't really think of anything. I have a couple other things that I would want to buy for my classroom, but mainly I think I have everything I want. And just as I said that, I thought of one bonus tip. And that is to start a list of things that you want for your classroom. In case anyone ever comes to you from your district or your division or your music coordinator and says, okay, I have $300, what do you need? Have a list of things that you want for your classroom that you're not willing to buy yourself, so that if suddenly money appears, that you have a list and some ideas of what you would like to spend money on. So that's all for this video. Just to wrap it all up and come full circle, you can be a fabulous teacher with spending no money in your classroom. You should not feel guilty if you spend no money, or if you do spend money in your classroom. You need to do what's best for your situation and your experience and where you are in your life. So until next time, have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.